20 years later, life after an affair. Posting on an old throwaway. For those of you wondering what your life could be like in 20 years with your unfaithful partner, I want to give you a peek into mine. Keep in mind everyone is different and you may have a way better future ahead. This is not to discourage you, only to warn you that it's not easy. Basically, 20 years ago, back when my wife and I were engaged, she was still young and immature, both 20 and spent 6 months cheating on me and taking demented pleasure in lying and gaslighting me. She would intentionally start arguments over stupid things and then storm off for hours, and come back looking very pleased with herself and refuse to tell me where she went. I was young and naive enough to believe her when she said she wasn't cheating. All my previous relationships had ended with me being cheated on, so she was ask me anything auntie, she would never do that to me. Well, months after it ended, she finally came clean with a classic drip feed of admission. First it was one time only because he forced himself on me, and when I said I was calling the police, suddenly it wasn't so forced. Then it only happened twice. By the end of the month I finally got the truth that it had been constant over 6 months, and I had a complete breakdown and told her we were done. But because I was an idiot and thought we were perfect otherwise, I decided to try again and push through, determined to make it work. We eventually got married a few years later, 17 years ago, and now here I am with an update, to give you a peek of your possible future 20 years after an affair. She's been otherwise excellent and I genuinely believe she hasn't cheated again. For what it's worth. Not that it matters. She has worked very hard on herself and is mostly a fantastic partner. I ignored the pain at first. But it festered, like a cancer, and slowly started eating me alive. Every time I asked her for answers, because she was so ashamed, she'd always deflect. Why keep bringing up the past when I only want us to move forward? Telling you would only make you suffer more and I can't bear to do that to you. Etc. But her lack of clarity coupled with a few niggling issues just wouldn't go away. She was raised Christian and would get upset every time we slept together because God will send me to hell because we aren't married. Yet no tears were shed when she was with him. She would be constantly paranoid about getting pregnant despite being on the pill and making me use protection up to 4 months after she started taking it. So I never understood the paranoia until I learned that every encounter with him was bareback even before she started contraception, and he was the first one to get that experience with her for months before she let me do that. That bit still stings. My mind is wrecked. 20 years of constant stress that despite assurances, I could come home tomorrow and find her in bed with some other guy. Because I never got a reason why she even did it in the first place. I think she was just curious and liked the thrill and I was boring in comparison. But her only response is, I don't know why I did it, so I guess I'll never know. If I don't know what set it off in the first place, how will I know what to look for that could set it off again? It's like walking blindfolded through a field of landmines and trusting the people who set the mines that they're all deactivated. I've been on antidepressants for years now at maximum dose and they don't do a damn thing anymore. I'm on heroic doses of morphine for a 24-hour headache that never goes away again. I've not told her this, but the endocrinologist believes it's from stress and PTSD causing constant tension headaches. It's crippled my ability to do most things and I know she resents it, but there's no fix, so that added tension just hangs over the relationship. I've seen multiple different therapists and all it does is make me resent life even more by dragging it up again. Coping skills are useless because the only coping skill that would work is a time machine that could undo what happened. So until that's invented, I'm stuck with this. It may work for some, but it hasn't worked for me because the problem is fundamentally unfixable. Like trying to fly by flapping your arms really hard. Here's where things are. If I left her, all that would happen is the next partner would cheat on me, so there's no point. We've built this entangled life that for the most part is great, except I'm incapable of experiencing happiness and joy in anything. Even hobbies I used to love are now just pointless. Add in the constant weight of chronic pain and I feel like I'm one straw away from snapping like a twig. Every single thing she resents in our relationship, my inability to do things like I used to, not being the fun-loving person I used to be, etc., are all a result of her actions back then. If I tell her that, she thinks I'm blaming her for everything, but it's a simple fact. I'm barely keeping myself sane, but my mind constantly flashes back to something that happened a lifetime ago that I'll never get a satisfactory answer to, because one doesn't exist. If I stay, I'm miserable and suffer. If I leave the life we built together, I'm even worse off, not just miserable, but alone and unable to support myself on a single income alone. I've often thought about revenge cheating, but what would it accomplish? It would be inauthentic and wouldn't change the fact that she intentionally crushed my soul for no reason other than selfishness, and hurting her back won't change that fact. This is a lose-lose situation either way, and I'm not looking for sympathy. I wake up every day wishing I could end everything permanently, but I don't have the guts to do it, so I wouldn't. But it doesn't change the fact that it's the only thing I can think about day in and day out. It's like the thought of an instant fix is taunting me because it knows I don't have the balls to do it, so it's laughing even harder at me. She is now very dedicated to me and I honestly can't fault her at all apart from the above mentioned things. But it's just too little too late because the damage has already been done and there's no fixing it. The point of this is to say if you're expecting to reconcile and eventually get over what your partner did, don't be too hard on yourself and don't expect too much because it may not ever happen. You might end up like me, miserable, suffering, and regretting every life decision. Constant depression and paranoia, pain, self-esteem issues. The potential side effects never end. I don't recommend being cheated on to anyone. Sometimes there is no winning strategy. Sometimes all you can do is lose the best you can. Incredibly bleak, but also incredibly necessary for people who are considering reconciliation to read. I just want to say I'm sorry that this is happening to you, and I think that a lot of what you're dealing with is because 1. You never got to heal. You rug swept and never had closure from that portion of trauma, so it's been an open wound. You probably have some manner of PTSD from it. You're saying you're still having flashbacks after 20 years. It's because you still have completely unprocessed trauma, and a partner that was never willing to help you overcome it. You said the problem is unfixable. Well, it actually is, but that leads to number 2 too. You're absorbing the sunk cost fallacy. I get it, I was married for 15 years and after she cheated on me in year 8, it took me until she cheated again in year 15 for me to leave her because I, also, thought about how much work I had put into this relationship. The problem, as you say, is fixable. But it involves seeing past the sunk cost of a 20-year marriage and realize that life is better without seeing this person who never helped you overcome your trauma every single day, a reminder of what is causing you to feel this way day in and day out. Like I said, I went through it too. For me, it was my kids. I didn't want to leave my kids, I didn't want to see them less. I had put so much work in it, that I was content to just be miserable the rest of my life so that everyone else could have what they want. And then at one point, a good friend told me something that completely altered my mind. Your kids, ultimately, are temporary. You have them until basically they are 18 and then they go out into the world, and then what? You're stuck with this person who disrespects you for the 30-40 years you have remaining in this life? I told my ex I wanted a divorce the next day. This isn't just to you, but anyone who is considering reconciliation. It is never too late to seek happiness. You have never put too much into a relationship with someone who disrespects you. There is always an opportunity to go find yourself again without the person who cheated on you. Take care of yourself, friend.